Lesson 7, price and income elasticity of demand. What I'm now going to do in lessons 7, 8, 9 and 10 are the technical parts of the course. I'm going to end up by looking at the housing market and the oil market in lesson 10. But you have to learn all of these things like price elasticity of demand, income elasticity of demand and the cross elasticity of demand. Okay, well, I'm going to start off with how we get a demand curve, which is really straightforward. Right, so if we are going to be looking on here, we start off the determinants of demand and the law of demand. Right, so what factors will influence a shift in the demand curve? And all of these things here, the first one are pretty obvious, they're sort of pretty obvious factors. That's the reason why I've got that one down there, is if your tastes improve for that particular product, that will cause a shift in the demand curve. The price of substitute goods. So if you like cornflakes but shredded wheat go down in price, the shredded wheat is a substitute good to yours. So if shredded wheat goes down in price, we can expect the demand curve for Kellogg's cornflakes to fall. Substitute goods. Complementary goods, things like gin and tonic. So therefore, if the price of gin takes a fall, we would expect the demand for tonic to go up. Right? Or bread and butter. It's a pretty stupid one. Let's stick with gin and tonic. Strawberries and cream is another one. So if the price of strawberries becomes really cheap, then people may also buy more cream because they like having cream with their strawberries. So that's complementary goods. If people's incomes rise, that will also cause a shift in the demand curve. And the size of the population. If the size of the population goes up, we would expect more people to demand that good. This brings us on to the law of demand, which says, all it says is this, is there is a relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. So if we have a high price, low quantity demanded, and if we have a low price, high quantity demanded, and that's it. Right, technical part of the course, the price elasticity of demand. And once you've finished all of this, you'll understand why it's important. Every good has a price elasticity of demand. If you are a producer, you want to have an inelastic demand. Because what that means is you can raise the price by a lot and demand hardly falls. Ultimately, you probably want to have an inelastic demand. So if you raise the price, the demand doesn't fall at all, and the elasticity then would be 0. Okay? So that's a pretty extreme case. Right, so the price elasticity of demand for good X divided by the percentage change in price of good X. Right, so if it's inelastic, if it's between 0 and -1, because the relationship is normally a negative relationship. So for example, say if the price of a good goes up by 10% and the demand of the good falls by 10%, that will mean that the price elasticity of demand will be 0.2. Sorry? It'd be minus 0.2 because that has gone down. It's always a minus. So that is minus 0.2. That will mean, because it's between 0 to -1, that will mean it has an inelastic demand curve. Okay, so what does that mean in reality? If we use the example over here, it means if we raise the price here, so the price goes up here by quite a lot. So price has gone up and demand has fallen by a smaller amount. The price has gone up by that much and demand has fallen by that much. It's a much smaller amount, so therefore it's an inelastic demand. Okay, so it's inelastic between 0 and -1. So this is really inelastic. And if you draw it like this, it is still inelastic, but it is more elastic than the inelastic demand curve with 0. Okay, if it's between -1 and infinity, that means infinity there, it is an elastic demand. So here on this diagram, this is an inelastic demand curve. Let's go over it again. So here if we raise the price, what happens? The percentage change in quantity demanded falls by a smaller amount than the rise in the price. I think I said that correctly. So here price has gone up by that much, demand has only fallen by that much. Okay, inelastic demand. However, if here, this is the price here, in this situation, the price goes up by a little bit, say to here, so the price has maybe gone up by 25%, all right, so we put that into the percentage change in price is 25%, but demand has fallen, let's just assume it's fallen by It's gone down, so the price has gone up, but the price has gone down by 50%. Now clearly that is -2. -2 is more than -1, so therefore that demand curve has an elastic demand. Okay. We get some extreme cases. This is when the price elasticity demand is 0. We just done that one. This here is when it's infinity. So if there is any rise in price here, we will sell no goods at all. Pretty ridiculous example. But we can sell as many goods as we want at this price. Okay, it's not a problem. Here we have unitary elasticity, where it's always equal to 1. Now what that means, if you reduce the price, say by 10%, demand will also go up by 10%. It's always equal to 1. And the reason why it's curved like that is because all these areas are exactly the same as each other. And in fact, if you really think about it, your total revenue is going to be the same, as I'm going to explain in a second or two. So that is the price elasticity of demand. Now, if your price elasticity demand is less than -1, so it's inelastic, if you ever raise the price, you're going to get more revenue back. Now, the reason is, if you raise the price here by 10%, demand falls by 2%, then actually overall, the company is going to bring in more revenue. I'm just trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but I'm not going to at this moment in time. The income elasticity of demand. Right, so that is the price elasticity demand, and this one here is more elastic on here. I'm just trying, let's just do an example here. So say if the price, this little part of the board here, if the price of a good goes up by 10%, so it goes up from £10 to £11, all right, but demand falls from 100 to 99 goods, so therefore demand has only fallen by 1%. Right, so what you then do is demand has only fallen by 1%. So therefore this has an elastic demand, which is going to be 1% divided by 10%, and that is equal to -0.1, so that is really inelastic. So what we then do is we do 100 times 10 quid, which is £1,000, and then we do 99 times 11 quid, and I'm just going to get a calculator to work that out. Hope this one works. 11 quid times 99, and the revenue has gone up to £1,089. So what I'm trying to say is, whenever that is less than -1, if you raise the price, that will always raise the revenue. Right, we've got that on here. Let's clear up this board a bit on here. It's just then we're going to talk about the income elasticity of demand on here. Right, what the income elasticity of demand is, it shows the relationship. It shows the relationship between the income, your income, and demand for that good. Now this is a really important concept. Now the reason why this is an important concept, if we look at China, their incomes, we can see on average, are rising by 10% a year because they've got 10% growth, and so there's going to be a big rise in demand for maybe more luxurious products, which is what the West produces. Things like Jaguar Land Rover is doing really well in China, so it's probably got a high income elasticity of demand. Right, the actual equation is this one over here, and it shows the relationship between the demand for a good and a rise in someone's income. So what this means is, someone's income goes up, how much will that affect the demand for that good? Now basically we get three types of good. We get a luxury good, we get a normal good, and we also get an inferior good. Okay, so what that means on here is, if your income goes up, demand will rise by large amounts. So let's take Land Rovers again. So here your income goes up by 10%, and on average the demand for Jaguar Land Rovers goes up by 20%. So therefore you have an income elasticity demand of +2. So that is a luxury good. If it's more than one, we say it's probably a luxury good that you have on there. Obviously the higher the number, if your income goes up by 10% and demand goes up by 100%, that's a big change. So what's happened also, give another very famous example of a product, is pork. The Chinese like pork. As the Chinese have become wealthier, so they now eat more pork. This has a big impact upon agricultural prices because pigs are not that good at converting inputs into energy at the end of the day. So the pigs are eating much more wheat or whatever. If pigs eat wheat, which I think they do, so they eat more wheat. And that means a lot of the wheat production is going into feeding pigs, and it's not going into making a bread, which is much more energy efficient. So that's having a big impact upon agricultural prices in the world because the Chinese are eating more pork. Okay, a normal good. In this one, it's going to be between 0 and 8. So your income's got up by 10%, demand rises by 8%, that is a normal good. Whatever is a normal good. So maybe that could be as we become wealthier, then we may buy more ordinary price cars because more people can afford cars. Okay, so a normal good, maybe something like a Fiat Panda or something like that. We also have inferior goods, bit of a harsh name. As people's incomes rise, they demand less of that good. So cheap bread, processed food, maybe as people become wealthier, they're going to buy less of that food, and that has a negative income elasticity of demand. So we've learned two things in this lesson. We've learned, we've learned three things actually. What factors influence the demand curve? What will make it shift outwards? Okay. We've also learned the price elasticity of demand, quite a straightforward concept. And we've also learned the income elasticity of demand. Now, if you can use these in your essays, examiners like it. So for instance, when we do the macro course, when we're importing goods, one of the problems in the world today is, and it came up in the last exam, is if the price of your imports goes up. So the price of oil goes up. We have in the short run, we have an inelastic demand for oil because it is a necessity good, because that is one of the determinants of the elasticity. So therefore the price of oil jumps, okay? The price of oil goes up, so here it is $100 a barrel, and now it's $200 a barrel, okay? So the demand will only fall from 100 million units to 80 million units. So demand has only fallen by 20%. So in this case, the price has gone up by 100% and demand has fallen by 20%. So it's got a minus 0.2 elasticity of demand because it's a necessity good. Now that will therefore have a big impact upon the balance of payments, because even though the price has gone up, we're going to demand less of that good because it has an inelastic demand. So students, it's not so much you're going to get a question on right about the price elasticity demand, you won't get that. But you'll be using these concepts, price elasticity demand and income elasticity demand, all the way through your essays. Thank you.